What's going on, YouTube family? Today is the first day after Christmas and it is the beginning of a brand new training cycle. The cycle that we're going to go through starting today is a hypertrophy based training cycle for the purpose of overall athletic development. So that of course doesn't mean that we can only just do bodybuilding style training with bodybuilding sets, reps, and loads. We also have to do sprinting, we also have to do plyometrics, and we also have to improve or work on power development. However, those physical qualities are going to be held at a maintenance load, whereas hypertrophy is going to be the primary focus of this training session. So I will take you through step by step, and I hope you enjoy the video and I hope you find value in the information that I'm providing. If you do, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And now for the training. So normally I'd have to do a voiceover because I'm not a crazy motherfucker that just talks to my phone at the gym when other people are around. But today, as you can see, nobody is here because everyone's slacking after Christmas. So I'll probably have time to talk to the camera, and that'll make it easier for me in post-processing. So the first movement I like to start out with is a rectus femoris stretch. I really like this just because I tend to sit a lot, and I'm sure you guys do too. So it's really nice to open up the hip flexors and kind of stretch out the quads. As athletes or as someone who is trying to improve their athleticism, one of the main movements that you need to be able to control is hip extension without cranking through your low back. So if you can open up range of motion towards hip extension, then that's usually going to be a good thing prior to a session that focuses at least a lot in part on the hip extension or the forward propulsion movement. The next stretch I'm a huge fan of is the all fours posterior capsule stretch. Looks like a pigeon stretch, but the way that I set it up is a little bit different. So what we'll do is we'll get a pad, and we're kind of getting into this normal pigeon position. So to set it up from the very beginning, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. You're gonna step one leg back, turn one leg in, so externally rotate my left hip, and I'm going to try and get my belly button directly over my left knee. If I do that, I should feel a stretch in my left back pocket. I can then lower my right knee down and just go ahead and put a lot of weight into my left knee, and I'm gonna feel that pretty deep and pretty targeted stretch in my left back pocket area, so the posterior capsule of my left hip. From there, I can then go down to the ground, and then I'm really stretching. I'm pushing my chest away from the ground, and I'm performing deep, slow, controlled breathing. The reason why this movement is very important is because in order for you to assume a squat position or just get into general internal rotation at your femur, you need to be able to posteriorly glide the femur into the back of the hip socket. And if there is tightness in that area, then you're not going to be able to internally rotate or lower down into a squat as effectively. So this one's really nice to open up the back, especially if you have tightness back there. So 4 sets of 20 meters for our sprint work today, which is pretty low volume compared to what I'm used to doing. Usually I do anywhere from 6 to 7 to 8. So pretty chill day from a sprinting perspective, but it does still feel good to move fast. The important thing is that When you do a lot of hypertrophy or max strength based work, you don't want to lose, I guess, like neurologic or neuromuscular coordination. So it is super important to at least do a maintenance level of whatever athletic activity, sprinting, jumping, changing directions, that you want to maintain and eventually improve. So today for clean pulls, just doing a moderate load, just kind of get back into the swing of things. I had a neck injury like 2 years ago that would kind of get flared up whenever I would do power cleans or hang cleans where I'd catch in the front rack position. So I worked to resolve that, and now just kind of working back into the swing of things to ensure that my technique is as good as possible. And so part of that is not going directly back into the thing that has been hurting me before, but to go back to the remedial version, which is a clean pull with no catch in the front rack position. So just keeping it pretty light today. I'm looking for a weight where I have to try hard enough to put intent into the floor and into the bar, but nothing where I feel like either my movement quality is going down or nothing that's going to essentially take away from the fluidity and the smoothness of the movement, if that makes sense. So we're working up to 185. I'm gonna do 3 rounds here. I started at a warm-up at just 135. I think the biggest cue or the biggest thing about clean pulls and snatch pulls is to think about it as 2 movements. So you got the first pull from the floor, and then the second pull, which happens as the bar passes the knees. From the floor, you just want to make sure that as you're pushing up, the knees get out of your way so that the bar path can remain straight vertical. And then once that happens, the knees come forward, the body comes a little bit under the bar, and then it's just a straight vertical jump from there. So think of it as like a hip hinge from the ground. Once the bar, hip hinge from the ground to get the knees out of the way, and then once they are out of the way, knees shoot through, hips shoot under the bar, and then everything goes straight vertical. Knees out of the way, knees through, straight up. Another thing, if as you're coming up, during your triple extension, where your hips pop the bar straight up, if the bar moves forwards, so if I'm coming up and I triple extend, and instead of the bar just going up towards my chin, I push it and it goes up and forward, then that usually means that the bar is too far away from your body, and you want to make sure to try and keep it, just focus a little bit more on your bar path. So usually that's a matter of here, I don't get my knees out of the way, and instead I have to lean more forward, and then as I come up and through, because my hands are coming back as my hips are coming forward, it'll just shoot the bar forward. So really focus on bar path. It can be helpful to record yourself, just like put the camera to the side. I know it looks a little weird when you're in the gym and you're recording yourself, but like, who the fuck cares really? So put it off to the side, and then if you either slow-mo your video or you just kind of drag your finger through, then you'll be able to see, okay, at what point does the bar get too far out in front of me? Or if it doesn't, then am I doing a good job of maintaining a straight vertical bar path where my body is kind of adjusting to the position of the bar. And then ultimately the end result is that the bar pops straight up to the bottom of your chin. If you were to go ahead and drop underneath and catch it in a front rack position, then obviously you don't want to have to jump forward to try and meet the bar where it is. You want it to kind of just come to you, and then there's this transition between momentum going up and then just catching and holding at the bottom or underneath it. Last set, best set, baby. Trying to be super explosive on this last set and really just focusing what we just talked about on bar path. Get the knees out the way and then jump. Ooh, that was good. Ooh, now I've got a little in front of me. Keep close. Better. Last one. Ooh. Quick note on rest times. So how do you know when you're rested enough or when you should rest longer? So it kind of depends on what you're training for. If your goal is hypertrophy, which is, like we talked about, the ultimate goal of the session, however, not the goal of this particular exercise, then you can, generally speaking, cut your rest a little bit shorter. It kind of depends on what style of hypertrophy you're working for, whether it's maximizing muscle tension, in which case you'd want to rest a little bit longer because you are maximizing muscle tension, or if it's a little bit more metabolic, so high reps, getting a big pump, going to like muscle fatigue. Usually in that situation, because you're going to complete muscle failure as opposed to trying to maximize the amount of tension on the target muscle, you usually rest a little bit shorter. For power development, usually I like to push it out towards 1:30, 2 minutes. However, for this one, since really it's just kind of a reacclimation of the movement and just trying to drill my technique, I'm resting long enough to not feel like the next set, or not to feel like the previous set is going to hinder or take away from my performance with the following set. But I'm not as focused on watching the clock. If I were to try and push this up to a heavy set of 3, heavy double, heavy single, then obviously I'd be resting a little bit longer. So I like to use movement quality and movement speed if the goal is power development as my indicators of, am I getting enough rest or do I need to slow things down a little bit? So kind of around the same time that I got my neck injury, I also messed up my knee. I was squatting heavy, 385, no big deal. And I felt a twinge at the bottom of my squat, and I couldn't do a bodyweight squat for like, I don't even know how long. So I'm pretty sure I tore my meniscus on my left side, although it hasn't been confirmed with MRI. But all that to say, I have been working on improving my squat and getting it back to where it was. But what I didn't used to do before that I do now is I do much more slow and progressive building sets up to my working weight. So today I'll probably just take the empty bar, I'll add 25s, I'll add 45s, and just make sure that when I go towards my working weight or get closer to it, I'm feeling really confident. I feel like I've grooved the movement plenty of times prior to it. Because I think although the range of motion is clear now and my load tolerance is improving, still a little bit shaky or hesitant with deep squatting heavy. And so just trying to navigate around that injury has been a process, but a good learning experience also. So today I'm working up to 2 sets at 65% of my 1 rep max, which was most recently tested at 315. So it'll be like 220 something, I think. The implement of choice that I'm using is a safety bar. It's my favorite squatting tool. I like that it feels, or it has the load bearing capacity of a back squat, but because the hands are in front of the body, you start in a little bit less extension through your thoracic spine. So I'm a big fan of that. But I realize that a lot of people don't have access to safety bars. So if that's the case for you, then I really like a Zercher squat, where you're holding the weight out in front of you, or a goblet squat, but they obviously don't have as much loading potential. So what I would recommend is you start with something that allows you to squat really effectively first, progressive overload it, and then move on to implements that pull you away from having really good technique slightly, and then working on controlling position, because technically if you could do a barbell back squat, even though it emphasizes or puts you into a little bit more extension, and it's a harder position to get into without compensating if you can, because you've drilled the movement so many times with other implements, then there's nothing inherently wrong with using a barbell to back squat. So that is my 2 cents on bars, and now I'm going to get into my working sets. So far, so good. Everything feeling good, no knee pain. Just a lot of muscle recruitment, which is perfect. Probably the biggest piece of advice I can give for anyone doing any exercise is you want to feel muscular recruitment, not joint pain. So if you're feeling joint pain, feeling tendon pain, and not just muscle burn or muscle recruitment overall, then probably change the exercise that you're doing. And then on top of that, if you want to stick to the exercise and you could just manipulate how much weight you're using, the tempo that you're moving through, or the range of motion that you're moving through, that'd probably be a good idea. Last working set, 65%, 10 reps. Let's go. Oh yeah. Woo! 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 Volume started to kick my ass. Woo! So a quick note on these split stance single leg hip hinges. We want to make sure that as we're hinging downwards, our weight stays centered over the front foot. Our hips should move straight backwards, but our knee should not extend. If we keep the knee exactly where it is and we shift our hips straight backwards, we're going to feel a nice stretch through the posterior chain of our body, our hamstrings and our glutes. And then from that position, while staying forward over the front leg, as you push down into the ground and bring the hips through, you should feel a co-contraction of the hamstrings and the glutes, moving from a fully lengthened position during the hinge to a more shortened position during full hip extension. Last I finished with some dead bugs. I used a band in this case. And then from here, all you want to do is make sure that you reach your knees up to the ceiling before initiating the alternating hip extension portion of the movement. We want to make sure that our low back and our low back is flat, but our tailbone is elevated up. Just in this position alone, you're going to feel your low abs turning on. And then once you extend one leg out, your goal is to avoid touching your tailbone down to the ground and keeping that position while fully extending the leg. What this is going to do is it's going to increase the lever and therefore stimulating muscular recruitment around your lower abdominal region very effectively. So this one's really good. The goal is to move nice and slowly and again maintaining that tailbone up position throughout. So anyway, that was a workout. I hope you enjoyed it, and go ahead and try it if you want to. It's a really good beginner intermediate level training session. There are a bit of technical demands in terms of the clean pull and the sprint development drills that we did in the very beginning, and little things here and there, but it'll at least give you a good framework that you can base your training off of. And just stay tuned for more videos like that if you want to follow along the journey. If you have any questions or comments or things that you want to learn more about, go ahead and drop it in the comment section, and I'll either respond directly on YouTube or I'll make a video in the future about whatever topic ends up coming up. So appreciate y'all. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe again, because we thirsty for the algorithm, baby. Peace. See you on the next one.